Hello, welcome to the latest episode of Data Unchained. I'm your host, Molly Presley. For those of you new to the show, let me tell you just a little bit about what we talk about in this podcast. So we really focus on thinking about how decentralized the world has become as far as the types of data that we're generating and how we're trying to use that. So you can think all the way back to maybe mainframe computing, where all the data was generated in one building and the applications and the people who were using it all sat in that same building, to the world we're in today, where people are located all around the world. We have data sets coming from space, from cars, big cloud systems. And with the advent of AI, we are now trying to figure out how do we get access to those data sets and use them in a responsible way. Data Unchained digs into what are the challenges with leveraging decentralized data? What are some of the technologies that are available to help with this? And what are some of the benefits if we tackle this and can really put all this good data to work? So today we have a really interesting guest. Paul Lekas is the head of global public policy for the Software and Information Industry Association. Seems like a really big role in the world we're living in today. Paul, thank you for joining us and for sharing some of your insights today.
Thank you, Molly, for having me. I'm really excited for our conversation.
So before we dig into public policy and data and all those great things, tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your background? And then we'll talk a little bit about the industry association you're part of as well.
Great. So I live in the Washington, D.C. area now, which is more relevant to my work that we'll get to in a little bit. I'm originally from Michigan. Love Michigan. Huge Michigan sports fan.
I was about to say go blue. That would have been appropriate.
Go blue. I did not go to the University of Michigan, but I've been a lifelong U of M fan. And
but you wear blue, not green. Is that appropriate to say?
Absolutely. Okay. I don't wear green, and Ohio State does not exist in my world.
Just in your nightmares.
Yeah. I have two sons. My younger son is obsessed with sports, including the University of Michigan. So he's got his sympathies in the right place. And let's see, what else about me? Well, we were just talking before. I play trumpet, and I have a trumpet back here. I played jazz during college and afterwards, and now I do more orchestral music and trying to get back into jazz. And my newest hobby, I think, is pickleball. I've been playing a lot of pickleball lately, and it is so much fun.
It seems like I am missing out on something there on the pickleball trend. I see them sprouting up all over around my neighborhood, and everyone I know plays. So in these days, I need to get myself out there and do it. But the trumpet part, that is kind of cool. Do you play in, you said more orchestral, but are you in a band? Do you guys play like jazz at locations, or we might be able to come check you out?
I'm like, that's what I'm working back towards. Nice. Trying to build up my chops again, teach myself again, because I went a number of years without playing very much. I do have a son who's playing trumpet, which is helpful, but I am part of a community orchestra right now.
That's cool.
Which is pretty fun. We play a new set of music every month and a half.
Wow, that's very cool. I love that. Bringing your hobbies back around, like we all do them in school, and then as an adult, you miss them. Very cool. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the Software and Information Industry Association. What is it? And, you have the title of Global Public Policy. What are you doing specifically in that area?
Software and information, these are gigantic industries. We represent about 375 companies, and they're pretty diverse. We work with a lot of education technology companies. We work with financial and market data companies from around the world. Some of the largest social media platforms and AI developers in the world, data analytics companies and data providers, cloud companies, startups. So our membership ranges from companies that are pre-revenue all the way up to some of the biggest companies globally. So we work on a range of issues. Everybody every one of these companies works with data. Data is central to their business in lots of different ways. It is central to the business of publishing. It's central to the business of data analytics, of AI development, of AI deployment. It is central to delivering tools that help to educate kids. So we work on data policy, considered very broadly. Cybersecurity, privacy, artificial intelligence is a really big area these days. Intellectual property, copyright and patent law, competition law, and a range of other issues that come up.
When you say you're working on these and you're thinking about public policy, how do you influence that? I know one of your colleagues was up in the White House just a couple of weeks ago. Are you advisors to the policymakers, or kind of what role do you tend to play?
So we're a trade association, so we represent the interests of our members. We have a view, though, that we can get policy right if the public and the private sectors are working together, and if the public sector, government agencies understand where industry is. And if industry understands where government is, and we're able to collaborate together. And I left out, and I shouldn't have, all these other organizations that are outside of government that are very important as well, civil society groups and so on, depending on the issues. So we engage in direct lobbying activity with lawmakers, policymakers, their staff at the U.S. federal government, state governments, also internationally. And we also try to develop thought leadership. So our members and our expert staff, my colleagues, have really good ideas about how we can do something perhaps better than we're doing it right now. So we write papers, we give speeches, we do podcasts, and we try to advance the thinking on different types of ideas out there.
And it's my understanding that you have a specific focus in AI right now. Is that correct?
It is. AI has been all the rage, certainly in Washington, D.C. for several years. The last 2 years, AI has been influencing every single area of policy that you can think about, health, financial services.
So when you think about your work, really around data and data structure and data usage, Can you tell us a little bit, both like what policies are working their way through, what kind of education are you doing right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are so many discussions about AI, and there's so many ideas about AI. And I think the people who are making our laws and policies are much more educated now than they were a couple of years ago, but still, we don't spend enough time talking about the data. And it's something that we've been trying to emphasize here at SIIA, because data is the fuel for AI. And AI is like the engine that extracts the value out of that fuel, out of the data. We really do see AI as having a potential to generate value in areas that have been unattainable and things that we haven't even considered before, really across the economy. So we do try to focus a lot on the data component, on the importance of having high quality data to train AI sets, on some of the challenges around different types of data sets that are available or not available. We could probably get into this more, but there's a lot of talk now about whether we're going to exhaust the existing universe of data or publicly available data in the near future, and whether our AI models out there are starting to collapse in some ways because they're becoming too self-referential. These are real concerns that engineers have in the AI space, and it's really important to focus on the data. How do we generate more high quality data? What sorts of repositories of data are untapped? And so these things do come up in a number of our policy discussions.
Your membership is helping you in educating. Yeah. Is that kind of how you think about the membership for SIIA?
Yeah, they certainly educate us. We could be thinking in the abstract and doing research on different things, but if you don't understand how policies are actually affecting industry, if you don't understand what the consequences of different policies are, then you're thinking really in a bubble. And so that's why we work so closely with our members, and they're able to tell us, like, here's what's going to happen if this bill passes. It's going to make it much harder for us to do A, B, and C, or it's going to create new business opportunities that didn't exist before. And it's that kind of insight that is really important when we're going to educate people here in Washington or in the States, so they understand what the consequences are from the decisions that they're making every day.
And so I work for a vendor. We create software to help enable data movement. And it's interesting to me as a vendor, kind of from the industry side, to think about how to engage with your group to know what's going on in the public sector and vice versa. Right. Do you kind of see that as a big portion of your role, kind of the bridge between industry and public sector?
Yeah, absolutely. And though it depends on the type of company. So there are some companies that have in-house major public policy teams, dozens of people who are working on all these issues, similar to what we would be doing. But most of the companies out there just don't. Many very large companies have small public policy teams. So we find with a lot of our members, they're relying on us to tell them what's going on. For that kind of intelligence, what is happening on Capitol Hill that could affect your business. And for the companies that have very large in-house teams, they look at us for different purposes. They want to understand, where industry is, and they think we also have an influential voice, partly because we do represent such a broad group of companies. In the way you described your company, I can think of a number of things that are happening right now that are probably relevant to what you're doing. There are, domestically, there are any number of ideas that are being considered about how to restrict access to data and use of data and the transfer of data, sometimes across jurisdictions, certainly across international borders. There's lots of foreign laws that have an impact on data storage and data transfer. We also, in working with companies like that, also see the technology that companies that specialize in storage or transfer or the use of data in transit or any number of these other really innovative solutions can actually help to deal with some of the challenges that were not possible, some of the policy challenges that were not possible to resolve before this technology existed.
Makes sense. For those of us who probably don't get a lot of access to the conversation of how government's getting involved in these areas, what is the government trying to do in this level of the data conversation, whether it's related to AI or, of course, it's relevant to security and other things that maybe you don't want to touch on, but maybe just tell us a little bit about kind of where is the government looking right now in this area?
The main place where we see government trying to engage directly with data has to do with privacy. And at the federal level, there's been talk for, 20 years about creating a federal consumer privacy law. And the doing so involves dozens, hundreds of individual decision points that have an impact on industry, on individuals in lots of different ways. We still don't have a federal consumer privacy law, by the way.
This is seems like it's happened in
for a long
certain
time.
Verticals, right? There's patient privacy and things like that, but not in this more broad sweeping area.
And that's exactly right. We do have the sector by sector approach, at least from the federal government level, to data privacy. We have health privacy. We have financial information privacy. We have student data privacy. We have children's privacy. And there's some other areas too. The federal government has a general privacy law that governs how it can use and how it can share individuals' data, all the data they collect for any number of purposes. And that's been on the books for 50 years. So we have a lot of privacy laws, but we don't have that overarching consumer privacy law. In the states, in 20 states, we do. So there are a whole bunch of different privacy laws right now that govern the use of data involving lots and lots of people who live in the United States, but not everybody. We also have more sector-specific privacy laws at the state level around student data, health data, and other areas. So there's a a patchwork of laws around the country that govern how data can be used and what rights individuals may have to access their data, to have their data deleted, to protect their data from being shared with third parties, and so on. So there's a lot going on the personal data side, and that's always a busy area.
You said we've been working on this at the consumer privacy, kind of thinking about it for 20 years. Are we at a moment where it's going to happen, do you think?
I'm always an optimist. And every new session of Congress, I think this is going to be the time when we actually get it done because we're so close and it's such a bipartisan issue. There's a couple of sticking points. And to be honest, I don't see it happening during this Congress, but there are always surprises.
Because of sticking points or because there's a lot of other priorities? It seems like there's a lot going on in our country.
So there are a lot of other priorities. I think that's the main reason. On the sticking points, I think you're starting to see people come a little bit closer, but there's still some daylight between different sides. And one of the sticking points, for example, is should we have one federal law? Should we have one law in the country, one unified law in the country for consumer privacy rights? Or should we allow states to have their own laws? Should we allow states to go beyond a federal law? And that's a big area of dispute. And industry thinks we need one unified standard for lots of reasons. And some other groups out there think that we should let states go further than the federal government. So that's been a sticking point. But there's a lot of other priorities right now. And in fact, there is another big push. There was one last year, but there's another big push right now to do something around artificial intelligence. But artificial intelligence is much more than just data. But we are definitely, seeing a lot of interest in trying to pass laws at the federal level on AI. So we'll see what happens.
It's really interesting, and definitely AI is a lot more than data, but which data gets loaded and used and, accessible out, some of it is privacy, some is, national security. I know a lot of the European countries are thinking about how do you train models and only keep data, sovereign nation type of work. And it will be interesting to see how this all evolves for sure. And potentially AI will be the forcing function to make some of this policy finally get done too.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And you're right. I mean, data, like we were talking about earlier, data is so fundamental to AI. And I think that we need to have more attention on data. And it's not just privacy, but also the sensitive data. And there is industry trade secret data, and there is data that's protected by intellectual property rights. There's a very heated debate right now in the United States, but also globally around copyright. And to what extent should AI models be allowed to train on information that is protected by copyright? And there's a bunch of different views. There are some who think that we need to change the laws. There are some countries that have gone further than where the United States is right now. But that's a really, really big area in policy.
So, Paul, what is happening in the White House right now related to these topics?
Yeah, AI has been a major priority for this White House. And I should say it was a major priority for the Biden White House, and it was a priority for the first Trump White House. The most notable thing is this White House released something called an AI action plan a couple of months ago, and it lays out their framework for how the United States can achieve dominance in AI. And they're really looking at ways to increase development of AI by United States-based companies and increase diffusion, export of U.S. AI technology around the world. And one of the things that they want to do is try to reduce regulatory barriers that may impede the development of AI. There's been flowing from this a big debate over whether the federal government or state government should have authority to make rules about AI development and AI use, or we like to use the word deployment a lot, AI development and deployment. And so it's a heated debate. It's not resolved. There were, I think, 1,000 bills introduced across the 50 states this year about AI. Now, not all of them passed, but some of them are regulatory. Some of them are educational. They do a lot of different things. And so, the next step is the White House will be, we expect, working with Congress to see if there's some legislation they can pass. And that balance, that federalist balance between the federal government and the state government will continue to be a hotly contested area of debate over at least the next few months, but it will probably go beyond that. There's a number of foreign policy actions that this White House is taking as well to try to promote the adoption of AI from U.S. companies and other countries. There's a lot of talk also about data center construction because, we say data. I think data is probably I'll say data is one of the four most important parts of the AI stack. The other is another is energy, and another is compute, which is largely about semiconductors, and then there are the models themselves. I could add the fifth part of the stack are the people, the talent. But data center construction has been a real priority. And we're seeing data centers go up all over the country, and a lot of work to try to build data centers in other nations as well.
Out of curiosity, how does that balance of power work between state and federal on the data centers? I mean, they obviously are going into a state. Is it all federally governed, or is there some kind of collaboration going on between the two?
There is collaboration for sure. Energy policy is really complicated. There are so many different entities in the United States that have a say in energy policy at the regional level, at the state level, at the local level. So the state governments, local governments have been really, really important in terms of data center construction. We're seeing most of the data center debate taking place there. The federal government can ease some of the requirements around federal permitting, around environmental controls. They can release federal lands to build data centers. So that's really where the federal government has been involved. Tax incentives are a big piece of this as well. Trying to negotiate agreements with other nations, and even in some cases, tying that into some of the tariff and trade negotiations that are underway. Yes, this White House has really been about accelerating artificial intelligence as much as possible.
As these policies are being developed and discussed, sure is maybe a little bit of a, predicting the future type of situation. But is there any advice you'd give to industry on the types of things they can build into their technology or their own corporate policies to be ready for when this is more regulated?
I think that's a great question. I can imagine a number of different ways that policies are going to develop in the United States and other countries that folks who are building these tools should be thinking about right now. There's a separate question about whether these companies can actually influence the direction of where those policies go, while they're also thinking about what they may need. Auditability is something that we hear a lot. And whether companies are going to have to provide for some level of third-party or government audit over their systems. This is something that has not gotten a lot of headway in the United States, but we've certainly heard about in other countries. There's an overlay with AI, though, which is about nobody wants to be left out of the AI wave and of innovation. And so you do see in many, many places around the world, there is a kind of an easing of potential regulatory burdens on companies because countries want to be able to host data centers and they want to be at the forefront of the AI revolution. With a couple of exceptions. So Europe is potentially an exception there, maybe Brazil. But you do see a lot of easing of rules, even easing of the type of data that you can rely on for training AI, easing copyright rules in some places. But I think that, what we find is that companies like yours that have a perspective can be really influential in trying to direct policy, in one way that addresses concerns, but also doesn't create regulatory burdens that may be overwhelming. The other thing I would say is that, companies that are providing different types of products and services around storage and transit and so on, there's a lot of potential to gain, almost to arbitrage different regulatory frameworks in different countries. There has been a wave of data localization laws around the world, and we don't see that abating at all. In fact, in some places, it's likely to increase, again, because countries want to own their data and they realize that data is so important. And if they're going to have AI be successful in their country, they want to localize the development of those AI models that will be used in their country.
So we pendulumed from the mainframe to distributed everywhere, and now we're going to go back to localizing. So
right.
What are you doing on an education side? I think you said you're taking things even down to like the K through 12 level to help educate in the classroom. Maybe tell us a little bit about that outreach you're doing.
Totally. So we do a lot of work in education, and we're different than some of the other tech trade associations, and there's a number of them in DC, because we do work with so many education companies. We work with education publishers, work with education technology companies. There's a pretty significant movement here in the United States now to increase AI education at the K-12 level, especially. And we're supportive of all that work. We work with a number of different organizations that are promoting that work. We've working with the White House and other agencies of the federal government that are trying to promote that. I think where our niche is, though, is also trying to demystify AI tools and try to help bridge the gap between AI tools and the classroom. So demystify their use for teachers, for administrators, so that they can actually help to achieve the outcomes that are out there, that are potential. So the ability to deliver personalized learning to students and to help increase the overall level of learning in basic areas and more advanced subjects. So we think that AI has a lot of potential in schools, but it's important that it not just be thrown at schools and teachers, that there is a level of education involved, and we need to make sure that as AI is developed, it is developed with the users in mind.
I did find it interesting. I have a 6-year-old who not only has a computer in her first grade class, but an AI assistant to help her with her finding her little her first grade tools that she's supposed to be using for reading versus math, and she speaks a foreign language. It's interesting though that she uses, it's called AI Assist in first grade, which just is staggering to me. But the education is super important.
Wow.
She doesn't even know AI is new or different. It's just part of her world. So as we tie things up, is there anything else you'd like to leave the audience with of kind of what else people should be doing now? We already talked about on the technology and industry side, but anything else you'd add?
AI is going to be part of everything we do in one way or another. I think people should play with AI. They should experiment with it. They should try to understand that AI is limited right now. If we're talking about general chatbots, our kids, your daughter, my sons, they are digital natives. They are going to learn how to use these tools. I think it is incumbent on industry to help to be responsible and to convey what responsible use is, and to be transparent about what these tools are and what they can do. I think there's another area where we're definitely looking at interest from policy, which has to do with trying to promote a more trustworthy ecosystem out there of information. I think there's a lot of concern about some of the information that is being AI generated that we see in our daily lives. So I think that there's a lot more policy work that can be done there. And I think that industry, frankly, can be part of the solution there. And many of the companies that I'm working with see this as an issue that cries out for more attention. I think that's where I'll end.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking some time to talk with me and share some of your knowledge with the listeners to this show. Your website, what is the URL for your website?
Great. Thank you. It's SIIA.net, N-E-T.
Okay. And there you can find the activities that you all are involved in. Organizations who want to look into considering membership, is everything detailed there of why be a member and what's involved?
Everything's there. You'll see a lot of writing that we put up about AI policy, where things should go, data. I think it's a great resource, and encourage people to check it out.
Awesome. Paul, thank you for coming on the show. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a great conversation.
Thanks for listening to Data Unchained, powered by Hammerspace. To learn more, visit hammerspace.com. If you have a guest you would like to hear on the show, email me at molly@hammerspace.com.